lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
Getting the sexy version today.
Oh, you actually didn't put your shirt? I just put my shirt on.
So welcome to another episode of Jonsuntitledpod, a partner of Moshpit Nation. I am joined, as always now, I'm going to use that Wayne's World thing to death, by Daniel Terry. How are you doing this week?
I am doing fantastic.
I would assume so. You got a new Hopesfall record in the mail.
Oh my god, yes I did. And it is awesome. It is pink and purple. Very metal, right?
I thought it was... Are you joking? I thought it was pink and, like, silver or, like, metallic color. Like a gray.
It's on the order it says purple and... Or no, I think it says black and pink.
Okay.
But the center isn't really black, so I don't know if, like, the black didn't mix well with the pink, but it definitely looks purple. So, like, a purple center, you know, with a... It looks like I don't know, like some kind of pastry.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's always funny how that happens. We at Works, for those who may not have caught on, I work at a screen printing factory, and we got some custom tie-dye shirts in the other day, and the box said burgundy, the paperwork inside said maroon, and when I opened it, it is more red. So I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I go, working at this job has taught me I apparently don't know shit about colors.
Colors are very subjective.
Unless you're Ice-T.
Right.
Then he has a very fair stance on which side of the colors thing he stands on.
For sure.
That's an old school hip hop reference for some of those who may be too young or don't care.
We need to get him on the podcast.
I mean, I'm working on it. I'm working.
All right. Speaking
of the podcast, though, we made the news with the Blasko episode, thanks to Blabbermouth.
Yeah, holy shit! I was just randomly on Twitter. Well, I guess it was yesterday, right? And
yeah.
I saw like Twitter 5 minutes ago, and then they were like, the headline was like, you know, how does a band manager deal with a situation like Tim Lambesis? And believe it or not, I didn't associate that headline with what we had talked about immediately. I was like, "Oh, cool. Well, I guess they've got like they've got the Azalea dying manager on, and they're interviewing him about how he's handling." You know what I mean? So I clicked on it, because I was like, "Oh, hell yeah!" I want to read that. And then I was like, "Oh shit!" And then they were like, "Yeah, they're like Rob Blasko from." From Ozzy Osbourne band, Rob Zombie, talks about, what he would do as a successful manager on John's Untitled podcast. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I can't believe that they're running that. And no, it was awesome. And as always with Blabbermouth, the comment section was my source of entertainment for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's the comment section, and the funny thing, and we kind of spoke to this, is the fact that nobody... Typically, I always assume that the comments are going to be like, oh my god, this dude's voice is so annoying, or he asks stupid fucking questions, or, whatever. And none of that ever happens. It's always, surprisingly, very much focused on the actual content, the headline, the interview, the thing that the person themselves said, and very much something to what I said in our, prequel over on discography discussion, the whole thing about Azalea dying. A lot of people made the same comments I was making, so it feels kind of nice to be vindicated in the comments to something that nobody else heard. But when people were like, Ozzy tried killing Sharon and she forgave him and he has a career, look at Vince Neil, he literally killed someone drunk driving, the singer Razzle from Hanoi Rocks, all these things and all these different examples of other musicians and other people doing something. And it's like, why is Tim, for no pun intended, get lambasted for what he did? I maybe have been sitting on that one subconsciously. And it's one of those things where, I see all these people making the same points that, I maybe shittily made on your podcast, but it's interesting that it's still such a hot button issue because, like we have said, and like has been said a bunch, this is just an unprecedented circumstance. Like, especially in the metal community. I mean, not necessarily because we just pointed out a handful of examples, but I think like really the biggest like holy shit scandal we've had is really Ian Watkins.
Well, in the internet age, yeah. You've got Ian Watkins, Tim Lambesis.
That's it.
I mean, Randy Blythe to a lesser extent, but like he didn't like actually do anything wrong. So there's that. But yeah, no. What I liked about that episode of discography discussions, I felt like all views on the matter were represented. Yeah. And that was what was cool about that. Is we had yours. You were playing you were basically like the defense attorney. And me and Jeff were the prosecutors.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I mean, my opinion on it has changed a bit since it's all come out, since watching the videos and stuff. And I'm not still like, I'm not wearing the shirt and drinking the Flavor Aid, but I am, I'm willing to see how things go. It is very testament to the idea of, as long as you put out a rock and metal album and people like it, then you're probably fine. Like that kind of thing. And that seems to kind of be the case with all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely interesting though to see that, and I got a lot of text messages from people, and I was like, it's funny because we were kind of shocked by it, and the fact that we posted the episode on a Sunday, and then Friday, as yesterday, as of the time we're recording, it makes news, and it's almost like a full week had gone by. So like you and I are prepping for this interview with Lajon from Sevendust, and kind of not even thinking about what we've already done. We're moving forward, and then so it's kind of interesting just to see it pop up, and you're like, oh yeah, that that happened.
Right, like I said, I wasn't even thinking about it whenever I clicked on the article. I it's just like, oh, okay, cool. There was a part of me at first that before I realized that it was our stuff being reposted, that I was like, I kind of feel like we had a similar conversation about that,
Yeah.
Prior to this, and then to see that, oh, okay, it is our conversation. Okay,
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and kind of shifting gears a little bit to our guest this week, as the aforementioned Lajon Witherspoon. It's been kind of interesting. I know we have when we did the Louder Than Life festival thing. We talked about Sevendust kind of being a band that should be a bigger band than they are, and it's still kind of weird. They just put out a new record, I Am War, or I See War All the Time. That was what it was called.
Yep.
I See War All the Time, and it's a really good record. It's got a lot of hooks. It kind of reminds me of something that probably would have been, for me, like in the era of the Holmes, Animosity, and Seasons. Like it sounds like it's like somewhere, like would have been recorded somewhere in that same time frame. Like it's aggressive. It's got hooks. It's the Sevendust that you come to love over the last almost 2 decades now, or over 2 decades, and. It's so weird to know that this band, is a band's band. Everyone loves them. Everyone gives them props for, being one of the forefathers of like the odd time signature thing. But still, it's almost like they're the grandfathers of metalcore, really, if you think about it.
Maybe. They definitely brought some energy, when they first busted out onto that metal scene, in the late 90s, and I think. Like I said on Louder Than Life, I think Sevendust really needed to be higher. I was like, man, why not Sevendust? Why is Sevendust not the headliner on all of this? I mean, goddamn, they've earned it. Like they've put in the late nights. They've put it all in. They've done more, I think, than most bands that came out around the same time they did have done.
Yeah,
and because it's one of those like, there's not a whole lot of sure things in this world, but I guarantee you, if you book Sevendust and you fill up a venue, it's a sure thing.
Yeah.
And that you really can't say that with a lot of bands, even much more popular bands than Sevendust.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to kind of see the progression of the band over the years. And the other thing too that I always like, and I made the comment about it in the interview, is the band's not afraid to take out completely different bands they like, bands that to some degree maybe that younger band that's hungrier and wants it more than a band that's kind of established. And I'm not saying Sevendust, goes out there and rests on their laurels at all, but what I'm more saying is that, in the day and age where a lot of bands, when they do package tours, play it safe with like, okay, we know this band's going to bring people, but, we know that we offer something that they don't and can't. And so you're kind of playing it safe, and or if you're on the arena level, you kind of neuter the band in front of you, so that way they don't. So by the time you as the headliner come on, it's like, oh my god, this sounds so amazing, and it's like, well, there's little gimmicks like, oh, you can't go past a certain volume level, so that when we play, we sound much better. So I mean, like, there's all those tricks, and Sevendust doesn't do that. They don't neuter any of the bands they bring out. They just want to honestly provide the best show that they can for their fans and fans of the other bands, and it's really commendable in this day and age when everyone seems so worried about their own integrity, or not integrity, their own image.
Yeah, and I think Sevendust hasn't really ever been an image band. Like, there's no gimmick to Sevendust. It's one of those like, hey, do you like heavy aggressive music that you're going to remember when you're done listening to it? Well, yeah. Okay, then why do you not own every Sevendust album? You know what I mean? It's just one of those like, They bring it on a level that I think a lot of bands that make more money than them bring it, and it's really sad to see that, unfortunately, with the way the music scene is now, even the way it was back then, if you're not using those little tricks by like neutering the band in front of you, or keeping a percentage of whatever their merch sales are, during the tour and all that stuff, if you're not being the biggest dick in the room, you don't necessarily get a trophy for being good guys.
Right.
And I think that's probably part of what it is. I mean, it just sucks seeing some of these names of bands that they've taken on tour that have just gotten bigger over time, and it seems like Sevendust kind of, they've always been, people have always been aware of Sevendust and love them, but I just kind of feel like they have fallen between the cracks a little bit.
Yeah, and it's really sad to see such a thing happen to a band that's so good. But I mean, with some of these other bands calling it a day, maybe this really fucking weirdly, maybe, with the Slayers leaving and some of these other bands kind of getting moved up from like the quote-unquote mid-card, to kind of use a wrestling term, you're going to see a Sevendust who sort of is that mid-card player, but then in some instances is kind of like, the opening of the thing, like a lower tier band. Maybe with Slayers and the Aussies and a lot of these other older legacy bands kind of calling it a day, maybe this will be the era in the next year or two where we'll see Sevendust finally start getting that big push to where they're going to be really higher up on these festivals and really start making a bigger impact on the music scene.
Well, yeah, and on Blasko's podcast, he was talking about that a little bit in regards to the whole Slayer thing, like all these really big name arena bands that are calling it a day. He asked somebody recently, and I don't remember who he was asking, because I listened to all those in like 3 days.
I think it was it was Tim Bohr from the guy who like basically has everybody under his roster for booking bands.
Right. And he said, once the Slayers are gone and the Metallicas are gone and the Iron Maidens are gone and all that, they're like, who are the bands that are going to step up and take those spots, And from a musical perspective, totally, I mean, Sevendust is that band. They can still bring the crowd, can still have a sound that's not polarizing for people. It's not that I want to say that, like, oh, it's an easy listen, like it's a bad thing. But it's more like, people that aren't necessarily on board with, a cow with its throat cut screaming the whole time stuff, like those bands are not going to enter the arenas for another 20, 30 years, but a band like Sevendust is, they've got the commercial appeal while still bringing the heaviness that the metal fans like. And I think they very much, could be top contender for that. They just have to get a little bit more traction in the album sales and all that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. And speaking of panning out, we are going to get into my conversation with Lajon Witherspoon. But before we do that, we have a show sponsor this week, and it is the guys in Foxbat. And they wanted me to play their song Slow Strut again. So this is Slow Strut by Foxbat, and then my interview with Lajon Witherspoon. And we'll be back to talk to you after that. So I have the pleasure this afternoon of taking my lunch break with Lajon Witherspoon, a sentence I don't think I ever thought I would utter. How are you doing today?
Oh, fantastic, man. Oh, come on. You make me feel good, but it's a pleasure to talk to you.
So you guys just put out a record about a month ago, All I See Is War. The reception seemingly has been really good. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so, man. You know, it's exciting. All I See Is War came out May 11th, and we were able to go in and actually do 3 videos for it, so that was really fun to do. With signing a new record deal with the Rise Records, which thank the Lord that came about, and then also on top of that, working with Elvis Bassett, a friend, a brother that we've been wanting to work with for years. So it kind of everything kind of seemed like it was aligning right for us on this album, and yeah, I'm happy. Everyone seems to be happy about it.
You know, and speaking to Rise Records, you know, you guys had released the last few records on your own through Seven Brothers, I believe it's Records. But what made you want to choose Rise, and does actually working with a label that's kind of known for having younger bands kind of reignite a fire under you guys to kind of have that hunger again of a newer band?
Yeah, good question, man. Rise Records came in hot. They came in and they're fresh. The idea, to me, the social media finger thing was just on, you know, it's something I felt like an avenue that we really needed. All of us felt like we really needed this avenue, and you know, we were seemed like a fit for Sevendust, and they didn't want to change anything about us, you know, because they felt like I feel like they felt like it ain't broke, we can get ready to try to fix it. So you guys do what y'all do, and how about us be behind you, and we'll put this thing in motion. And man, it's been great ever since, and I feel very proud to be a part of Rise, and I hope and expect more, even big things with them in the future. So yeah, it's exciting to have to be a part. And then Dan, think about this. I never thought that bands got signed anymore. So we were like, yeah, excuse my language. You know, wow, we're getting a record deal again. It's crazy.
You know, in the 20 some odd years that the band has been around, how much has the industry changed? I mean, like I said just a couple of seconds ago, you know, you guys had kind of self-released the last few records. When you're kind of looking to get back into the game of going with another label, were you kind of surprised at how much it changed from the last time you were working with a label on putting out something?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Man, when you think about it, we signed a record deal when I was 21 years old. I'm 45 years old now. So it was a lot. Yeah, it was so, you know, back then, you know, we didn't really care about anything except for signing a record deal. You know, business, who cares? Oh, we don't know anything about business. We signed a record deal. Okay, we made it. We made it. Oh, God, yes, thanks. This dinner is great. Thinking, you know, we're paying for it. You know, no, we actually, yes, you guys, they weren't paying for it, even though we thought they were. We were paying for it. We had to pay all that stuff back. But
right.
It was but you know what, man? It was a fun, exciting experience back then to be signed and to you know, to do it. But if there's any advice I could give anyone, what I'm trying to get down to is we had to learn to be businessmen in this industry. And if there's anyone out there, man, woman, whatever gender you are in this industry, you have to know and stay true to the art, but also know a little bit about your business, know a whole lot about your business. So, you know, and that's something that we had to learn the hard way, but thank the Lord that it happened. And, you know, we became businessmen. So it helps out a lot.
You know, and also speaking to the band's legacy at this point, it's really interesting that, you know, with this record and the last handful, you know, you guys have had all the original members back that you started with. I can't really think of many bands, really. Maybe Korn doesn't even have that. I was going to say that have the original members still. Like, I feel like that speaks a lot to really the brotherhood of the band as a whole, and the consistency that the band has been able to put out, you know, record in and record out. Have you guys really ever thought about just, you know, the fact that you are one of the few bands that are still going with all the original members currently?
No, I think that's awesome. Maybe we could get awarded Golden God or something finally, just for at least that category. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's fine. I said that. I just feel a little shade. I didn't mean to do that, man. No, I've never thought about it. You know what? I've thought about the fact that we've definitely been a band for a long time. Actually, after that last press run I did with my public Kevin in New York, and it was along the weekend that they were going out to do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and stuff, and we were trying to figure out how long we had been a band. And it's been 20-something dang years, and it's definitely been a cool ride, and what a pleasure to still be able to talk to you about being relevant in the music business. It's crazy.
What is it that keeps you guys going when to make new material when a lot of people in your position would probably be more apt to rest on their laurels and the back catalog?
I don't know, man. I think, I got the fight still in us, man. We still got stuff to do. There's still music to be done. There's still faces to be melted. It's still places to go that haven't been, there's still places to go that haven't been touched, and people to grow with. And I feel like with Rise Records, and it's like kind of a new beginning, even though it's been a long time, but it feels new again, and it feels exciting, and it's really good. And like even before, even if it wasn't this, it's still, there's still stuff to be done. There's still people excited about music, and if we're able to help that, then we're here to do that.
It's interesting being almost in my mid-30s now myself, thinking about the band's legacy as far as touring. Like, growing up and being in high school in the early 2000s and looking at a lot of the bands you took out over the years, you guys always you weren't afraid to take out bands whether they were necessarily in your same vein. And I kind of have wondered, in light of this Clutch tour that you guys announced in the last couple of weeks, do you think that the willingness to kind of go out on, slightly odd tours and kind of growing your fan base with newer people and demographics, do you think that's what kind of has kept you ever present over these 20 years?
Well, I would hope so, man. I love the fact that we're able to hey, man, we got to change the set. We can't melt all the faces tonight. We got to throw Angel Sun in there and a little Christmas Day and slow it down. And it depends on the bands we're playing with. Yeah, so I think that's a great thing to be able to do, is to not just keep it pigeonholed and be like, we can go and play with one of the heaviest bands, and then also go and play with somebody that's only a radio band. So it's that's one. Yeah, I think that has helped us a lot. I think that's a good thing. I love to be able to do the heavy songs and then be out there and do the songs that I only sing, and it's a good thing to be able to be a part of.
Speaking to the vast touring that you have done over these years, I mean, I say this and it sounds, I think it's a pretty well-known fact in the industry that, you guys have taken out some bands that have as openers, and they've gone on to just skyrocket, and, bands like Stained and Disturbed and Kid Rock and, all these bands that are, still at the arena levels and so forth. And, it kind of made me wonder, since you seemingly know how to pick bands that are just destined for, greatness, have you ever thought about kind of segueing into maybe like an A&R position eventually?
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely like to probably help out artists and stuff in the future when I'm too old to rock it. But, yeah, definitely. I've always felt like I would be able to do that well. But, yeah, something definitely will always be in the fold for me to continue to be in the music industry some type of way. If it's be with my children or working with other kids or, other bands or something like that, I always like to do something like that for sure, brother.
Where do you... Because seemingly, a lot of bands, like I can think of even like, Howard Jones and Jamie Josta, would try to do the band thing in addition to managing bands or running a small label or whatever. Have you kind of given the thought of doing that, or do you think it's just not really fair to either you or the bands that you're not able to give 100% of your time to either project?
Yeah. I'm not really trying to manage any bands right now or like that. I'm still trying to manage Sevendust in my life. No, yeah, I can give definitely advice, and I definitely have a couple of bands that I do advise and talk with, but it's nothing that's on paper or anything like I'm managing you. I've had a couple of people ask me to manage them, and I'm like, yeah, right, I'm not doing that. It sounds like the same guy. It kind of makes me feel like the guy, my brother, that keeps beating me down about marrying him and his girl, and I'm like, listen. I get that you guys met us at a Sevendust show. I love you. But the way I've grown up, I just don't feel like I can go online and you buy me this thing and I'm an ordained minister and you fly me to your wedding and it's LJ it's Lajon Witherspoon, but everybody else is LJ from Sevendust just married them. I don't feel it's real. I mean, you do, everybody else does. I'm not a preacher. Sorry, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to do a Jaeger shot right after we do this. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I did 3 before I married you. Is that cool? I mean, I don't know.
It's like, it's kind of funny to say that.
I'm
I'm sure you guys have had wedding proposals done during your sets.
I think we've had that maybe twice. I can count on my hands how many times that's happened, because a lot of times you get requests to do that, and then, sometimes you don't know the people, but everyone, I think maybe twice so that's happened. We've been able to make that happen for someone. But me marrying somebody, I'm still kind of I hadn't returned his call yet. I don't know what to say besides no. I told you. I told you a long time ago, and it made me feel weird. Why you keep asking me? Now he's beating down my wife. Hey, can he do it?
I mean,
no.
I think it's definitely an honor. I know, like, one of your
it is.
One of your old tour mates in Wilson, I had Chad when they still were kind of a local band. They were good friends of my wife and I had him when he still would use the bass drum propose to my wife. But it was funny because he was calling me up like the week before the show, and he's like, okay, well, how do you want to do it? What are we doing? I go, I don't want to do that cheesy, like, make it all about me thing. Like, literally, it's the end of your set. So, like, just come out in the crowd, do it. I'll put the ring on the finger. No one will hear me. And then, like, literally, it doesn't detract from the show. So, like, everyone can tear down and do that and just keep going. And it was funny because when you guys had just last rolled around with them and Crowbot, he was like, yeah, we did a radio interview, and I brought that up because someone asked if we had ever, been a part of a proposal or anything. So it was kind of funny that I was like, yeah, I'm one of the first to do that, but I also made it not about me at the same time because I was like, this is already embarrassing enough and like really nerve-wracking. Yeah. I don't want any more attention on me than there needs to be.
That's awesome. Oh, so you tight with Wilson. I love it, man. Those guys are my brothers. That's so, and I love their new stuff, man. Congratulations to those guys. Tell Chad I love it.
Yeah. Kind of speaking of, that's not really a good segue. I don't really know how to segue into that from here. But, kind of something I've always found interesting about your band as a whole is that, everyone writes. I can't think of another band where literally you have 4 or 5 dudes who all contribute music in some way, shape, or form. But, recently Clint has been going out and, doing the thing with Seether. I know he was writing with Chris and all those dudes in Crowbot recently. And, just kind of working with a lot of different artists. Have you ever thought about, you guys bringing in somebody else? I mean, even with, all of you, have you ever thought about just kind of bringing someone else and shaking things up a little bit?
What do you mean, as far as Clint, when he leaves?
No, I mean, just in general, like when you guys are writing, have you ever thought about bringing somebody else into the fold and just kind of being like, hey, let's get out of our comfort zone a little bit and see maybe what somebody else would have?
Well, that's why we brought Elvis Bassetta in this time, because we hadn't had a producer or anybody in years as far as Sevendust, and so that was a big step for us, and that was something we really wanted to do, is to bring him in and to work with him as far as his writing ability, his guitar technique, his vocal ideas. I mean, it was great to have him come in. So yeah, we're open to that, and that's the reason we did this album with Elvis, because we were open to that.
Has anyone reached out to you to actually have you come in and write on some stuff with them?
Oh, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done several little side things, and actually, I'm still in the making on working on some more of my own solo stuff. So I'm excited about that too.
What is there a potential time frame of when maybe we can see something from that?
Well, I put a song out on iTunes called Love Song that some people seem to dig. It was a little different side of what I do, and I don't know. I know that I'll be doing some writing with a very well-known singer in the rock world that I really admire, that I think a lot of people will be excited about. I can't say no more than that, but we've been wanting to do some music for a long time, so we're going to make that happen, and it'll be with my solo stuff. So yeah, just in the future here, not too long, but when the Sevendust ship starts slowing down a little bit, taking on a little water,
we kind of talked quite a bit about the band's legacy and being around for as long as you have. Toward the end of, I think it was the end of last year, you guys did some shows with Crowbot, actually, where you did the 20-year anniversary tour or shows. Home next year turns 20. Is there any plans to honor that record in its entirety and maybe, take that out around the, a touring cycle at all?
Well, just announced, I guess, about a week and a half ago or last week or so, we announced that we're going to be doing 3 shows in Atlanta up to New Year's, and on New Year's we'll do the Home album in its entirety in Atlanta. kind of, hence Atlanta home, where
Right.
we started.
I just didn't know if outside of
Yeah,
those
that's good.
3 shows, if there was a demand maybe where, promoters are kind of reaching out going like, hey, if you guys wanted to bring this to insert whatever, or even maybe do, trying to think of, I think it was like Hatebreed, this past year where they did, Satisfaction and Perseverance, and then basically like would also throw in other hits, the normal hits throughout the rest of the set and kind of play.
It'll be a fun 3 days, man, and we'll be in Atlanta, so it's cool. Family's looking forward to it. We'll get down there and probably try to get a big old Airbnb, everybody stay in, and be able to go back to the house and hang out and make it a fun family trip and bring in a new year.
So kind of one of my last questions, and if you don't want to answer this, that's fine. This is just something that's been kind of omnipresent for me the last probably a month or so, just kind of been wrestling with it as a fan and just kind of thinking about this. But, Atlanta is known for kind of, as of late, recently being more of like a hip-hop mecca. Like, a lot of artists get made there. The whole thing about the strip club dude, the DJ, I can't think of his name, breaking artists and so forth.
Little John and all them,
Yeah. And so, in light of, just kind of how the rap scene seemingly, like, that's the lifeblood down there in Atlanta, this whole Kendrick Lamar thing that happened about a month and a half ago now or so.
What happened?
Okay, so he was at this festival in, I believe it was Alabama, and he was, like, headlining, doing his show, and he pulled a white woman up on stage to perform with him for this song. Oh. And so she sang along, and then he kind of cut her off and was like, yo, you can't use that word. And so
you can't use the word that I used in the song.
Yes, and kind of put her on the spot in front of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And then so they tried to redo it, and she did it again, and it was just kind of like nervous and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of made me wonder, though, as a result of that, as someone who likes all kinds of genres of music, it's created this thing where it just makes me wonder, as an artist, to your fan, does that set a precedence where you're kind of admitting, like, well, this demographic of my fans can appreciate my music to its fullest extent, and these other ones cannot? Or
wow, that's very, very, very wow. You really got deep on me with that one. Now, wow.
It's just one of those things where I think like it creates it's for me, it's because when I talk about it to my friends and when I've talked about it with other different people on this podcast, everyone is seemingly like, well, no, she shouldn't have said it. However, and then everyone goes like 50-50 with it, where it's like, okay, well, yeah, I don't know, and like everyone's kind of on the fence about it. But my thing is that I feel like from art, like as artists to their fans, I feel like in light of this, maybe we kind of need to figure out how to figure this out. Like it's a talking point at this point. So I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
What a great subject to talk about. No, the way I look at it is I don't say the word anyway. Period. Point. Like I have friends that I know that are in the industry in that rap game that use it as the second nature. I don't. I see. You got me in your back. I feel like I got to come out fighting. No, I don't understand. I don't see. For me personally, if I were able to get on this is me. All right, I'm telling this from my point of view, and I'm not talking about the white girl that was on stage. If I was on the stage with Kendrick and was rapping with that song and that word came about, I wouldn't myself feel comfortable saying it, and I probably would say it, as well as sometimes when I'm in front of a crowd, no matter who it is, and if I see a child and there might be a cuss word in one of my songs, I'll refrain from saying it, if that makes sense. So I think there's a time and a place sometimes to do things. That's just me. I don't know how I would have handled that. I don't think that I would want anyone to say that, and so if that makes sense. I don't know if I even answered the damn question or not. I'm kind of skating around it. I feel like I wouldn't have said it if I were her, and I'm black. How about that?
Right. It just also creates this thing.
And that word is not saying it's for just that it's an ignorant person. Period. The word, but I wouldn't say it. So
I have kids, you know what I mean? I have people that I have to look up to daddy, and daddy saying that, I don't think that I want to see my kids saying anything like that or anything negative towards any race, you know. I don't care if you're purple, you know, I'm not going to say anything. So that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, it's just interesting, like, you know, the other thing too.
She's probably with her girlfriend saying it. It would probably be a little weird, you know.
Right.
Roll past a bunch of girls in the car and they're singing that Kendrick Lamar song.
It was just kind of interesting too, like, because then the flip side is everyone's like, maybe Kendrick shouldn't have like kind of put her on the spot like that. Like, did he set her up to fail? And it's just like, there's just like so many layers to it. Maybe, so it's just like,
you know, maybe take the mic away from her mouth, right when she's gonna, you know, I don't know. You know, she likes the music. She bought the damn album, obviously. So yeah, some money in that pocket.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hear you, bro.
So, kind of in wrapping up, I'll be seeing you guys at Incarceration Festival here in a couple of weeks. I know it used to be Ink and the Clink, and now has kind of gone under a rebrand. How are you guys looking forward to playing alongside a lot of the bands you guys are playing with at that?
First off, I look forward to seeing all my friends out there. I love a lot of the bands that we're jamming with, and I can't wait to get to this creepy spot. What a good idea. Tattoos, Crazy, Prison, and all the cool bands. It should be fun, man. So it's my kind of spot. I look forward to seeing everybody and talking to you and catching up.
And then lastly, I always like to end these episodes out to a song. So what would you like me to play it out to, and maybe give me a little backstory on it? Doesn't have to be one of your songs either, if you don't want it to be.
No, I want you to play one of our songs. I want you to play our song Sickness, because that was one of the first songs that came out on All I See Is War, and I really like that song a lot. I removed myself from the album after we do it, and I just recently started listening to it, and today I took a ride in one of my rides, and I listened to that song. I really liked it, and no one's asked me that question, and you just asked me, and I just thought about that. So, Sickness.
Awesome. And then where can the band, or where can people find you across the socials, you and the band?
Sevendust official, and I guess. And I'm LJ Spoon on Instagram. That's what I do. A picture says 1,000 words, so I'll take a picture. And, like it. I don't like no drama, you know, no trolls or whatever they call them, catfisher or dogfishers or whatever you guys are.
Well, fair enough. Thank you again, Lajon, for taking the time to talk to me this afternoon, and I will see you in a couple weeks at Incarceration Fest.
All right. Peace, brother. We'll see you guys soon.
Peace. So that was our chat with Lajon Witherspoon of Sevendust. Dan, what did you think of that?
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm glad that you guys were able to do it. Seemed like it was kind of a middle of the day type of deal, and so no, it was cool that he had the time to talk with you guys. You guys talked for a good, about a good 25-30 minutes.
Yeah, it was basically most of my lunch break. I had a liquid lunch consisting of a Gatorade,
electrolytes.
Yeah. I figured it'd be rude if you could just hear me munching on my food, and even though it's my lunch break, I figured people wouldn't really be too stoked that I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm working in a sweatbox warehouse, and I still need to eat my food.
That's all right. On an episode of Discography Discussion one time, I ate an entire Burger King, like Big King bacon value meal. I mean, the soda and everything. I mean, you could hear the slurping and everything. I mean, it was great.
What'd you think of show sponsor Foxbat?
Oh man, they're awesome. Like I've been checking them out since I came on the show. You're like, hey, you need to listen to these guys, and I did, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're not too far from where you guys are.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so if you like that, they have a new album coming out. It's called Rock Gut. It's going to be out August 3rd on Core Sample Records. The record was also produced by Jordan Haynes of Artifacts Pareo. And you can pre-order that record on CD, and it'll be on vinyl. Dan, I know you and I are both big on vinyl, so
oh yeah,
perhaps we will snag that up. You can pre-order the album over at foxbatmusic.com. Want to thank them again for coming on as a show sponsor. You will see them on another episode upcoming with another new song off of the record. So go support those dudes because they support this podcast. And yeah, it was funny when I was emailing Clay, the dude who set up the sponsorship for these episodes. It finally dawned on me who they sound like to me, and it may not be the most like in your face, like, oh, there it is, band, but it's actually Seamless, if you remember them. Jesse Leach's old band after he left Killswitch.
Oh, okay. Wow. What were they called?
Seamless.
I know. And Seamless. Okay, I don't know. I was thinking of something else. He was in another band that
Corinne.
It was some kind of like progressive bullshit, like concept albums. I can't remember what it was called though.
Well, he
Okay,
did Times of Grace with Adam D.
yeah, that's different though. Oh well, it's gonna come to me as soon as we're done, I'm sure.
That's how it
But
always happens.
yeah,
But yeah,
but
so
I remember it was like a big concept album about like society and shit.
so big thanks to the guys over in Foxbat. Again, if you like them, go check out them. Pre-order the record Rock Gut coming out August 3rd, and foxbatmusic.com. And the other thing that's been kind of fun too about since doing the Sevendust interview is just really getting to their new record, All I See Is War, seeing that, they're starting to, they're playing Incarceration Fest this weekend, and, I'm just really looking forward to seeing the band live again. I think this record kind of gives them, and the last couple that they put out, and, we kind of talked about it, is, they self-released their last couple of records, and to see them, on Rise Records does really good at getting their bands out there, giving them good tour support, and it'll be interesting to see if it ends up kind of being an all Rise Records tour, or if they're going to kind of, just how they're going to handle this, like if it's going to be Sevendust business as usual, they have fun bands, or if it's going to be, like a bunch of young, like, gent bands opening for Sevendust.
Do the kids still play gent? I don't know.
I mean, that's kind of Rise Records' claim to fame.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's weird, and like I liked how you mentioned that in the episode that or in the interview that it's like, so what is it like being signed to a label that predominantly only signs new bands, like young bands? And his answer was just really positive. He said that they were basically foaming at the mouth to sign Sevendust.
It's got to feel
damn well should be.
Yeah, as I say, it's got to feel really good to be a band that's been active as long as they have, and instead of a band kind of, or a label kind of maybe looking at what you offer as far as your back catalog, a label coming to you and probably being excited about what you have to offer them as far as new material, because I feel like maybe that's not always the case.
No, usually it's not, and it's obvious that Sevendust isn't going to turn into a gent band anytime soon. Be interesting if they did.
I mean, there's like little bits of that on this new record, like those like kind of staccato-y type riffs, but I mean
they've always had that.
I was gonna say, but they've always had that. So I mean, so we went and just said that maybe they were the prototype for what would become metalcore. Are we now on record as saying that maybe they are the prototype for what would become gent as well?
Possibly. I think Sevendust is just a band that pulled from what was heavy at the time when they formed, and they've perfected that over the years. And I think that I think it's cool that they are still putting out new records. They're definitely a band that whenever I tell people, oh, yeah, you listen to the new Sevendust records, they're like, oh, they're still around. Well, fuck yeah, they're still around. They're probably somewhere near us right now, like one of the one of the hardest working bands out there. So like I think being signed to a label like Rise Records is really going to give them promotion and actually introduce them to people that don't necessarily know about Sevendust. I think when they signed to Rise, they were probably exposed to a lot of new fans.
Yeah, I would actually really agree with that.
People that aren't our age, you know what I mean?
I'm also interested to see if they end up doing, and I asked him flat out, like, is there potential to do a full on tour behind, the anniversary tour of Home? And he's like, yeah, we're doing the Atlanta shows, the hometown shows. And I was like, well, that's not exactly what I asked. I asked, are you going to do a tour? Because there obviously is a demand for everyone to see that, like whether it be just here in the States or worldwide. I'm sure fans of the band would love to have that, tour around so they can see it. And he didn't really say. So I don't know if that is going to be a thing they plan on doing at any point, is to kind of, maybe pull like an Every Time I Die where you play that record and then you like bang out like an encore full of 6 other hits or something, and then there's your set.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or either it's not happening at all, or he's just trying to keep tight wraps on it. One of the two.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird because they're doing those basically at the end of the year, so it's like if they were gonna do it, it seemed like it would be they would do it this year.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know on that. It's But it is cool hearing you talk to him, and he just kind of. I just like that's the thing I like the most about Lajon is that he's not like some of these other guys that are from the old school. Like he had no problem just sitting down and talking with you and just being like I talked about earlier or on the Blasko episode about bands from older school being a little bit less game on doing podcasts and interviews and stuff like that, and it's just nice hearing a band that's been around such a long time have no problem talking to guys like us and still being really enthusiastic about everything.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. Last night I went to go see the dudes in Light the Torch, and on the Guar tour got an episode with Blothard that I think is going to be pleasantly surprising to a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
and I was hoping to get Howard Jones on while I was there. That didn't happen, but I'm still optimistic it may happen in the future. But in hanging out with Mike, a.k.a. Scuzz, who I had on the podcast a little while ago, Ryan Wambacher from Bleeding Through is also their bass player, and Mike Ryan and I, to have correct grammar, went with my wife and got some drinks and some food and such, and we're hanging out and chatting, and toward the end of the day, or the end of the show, talking with Wambi for a little while, the dude was so easy to talk to, has a lot of different, history, obviously, with Bleeding Through and so forth, and looks like we're going to get him on in the near future. So, I mean, that's a dude that, is able to, mix it up with a lot of different people, has lived a very interesting life between, the Bleeding Through and metalcore, and, works as a welder and works on, like, bikes and stuff like that, and there's a lot of cool shit to get into, so I was really excited to get into that, and very much looking forward to seeing your reaction, especially to this Blothar episode, because like I said, I'll just go ahead and pre-tease it now, because it's going to come out in 2 weeks, but I think, as far as I can find, I think I got the second interview with him not in character.
Oh, nice.
So
nice. Yeah, I know there were some. We were talking about that throughout the week. Like, is he going to be in character? Is he just going to sit down like two dudes talking, or what? What's the deal? And I'm actually kind of glad because of the latter.
Yeah.
Just because I like to know the man behind the makeup, like that sort of stuff, and the man behind the costume, and that stuff is just infinitely more interesting to me than the character. You get as much as you want to know about the character from listening to Guar.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we kind of go into the psychology of all of that as well. Dude couldn't have been nicer, more hospitable. I was ready to go down the avenue of talking to Blothar the Berserker, but I'm glad I got to talk to Michael Bishop instead.
You had 2 different notebooks full of questions, right?
Yes, I did. So nice. Kind of, that's I think a good place to kind of end it. I gave you a little bit of a tease as to what's to come. So Dan, where can everyone follow you?
You can follow me at DiscussMetalDan on Twitter. You can find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, on Twitter at DiscussMetal and also at DiscussMetal.com. And
it's been kind of fun that people on Twitter are kind of realizing to actually tweet at both of us in things as opposed to just one or the other. So that's been fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
But if you would like to follow Sevendust, you can find them pretty much everywhere at Sevendust. Facebook and Twitter are just Sevendust. Their Instagram is Sevendust Official. If you would like to keep up with Lajon, he is on both Twitter and Instagram under LJ Spoon. If you would like to keep up with our show sponsors, you can find The Bean Bastard Coffee over at The Bean Bastard on Facebook and Instagram. And you can order some coffee from them at their website, thebeanbastard.com. Get you some. There's a lot of cool shit. As I said last week, they just put out a new blend, the Red Rum, Shining inspired. And the follow is fun. Their Instagram, he's been posting a lot of fun videos. It looks like he's having a lot of fun literally making the coffee and making these videos. And, it's always fun to see someone that's having fun making their thing, whatever it happens to be. And And then speaking of other people making things that are fun, Foxbat, you can find them again at foxbatmusic.com. You can pre-order their record. It comes out August 3rd. Rot Good is the name of it. You can get it on CD and vinyl, foxbatmusic.com. And if you would like to be a show sponsor, you can email me at jonsuntitledpod@gmail.com. And if you would like to follow me across the various socials, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Jonsuntitledpod Podcast. Tweet at me at Jonsuntitledpod. Maybe help me get Ice-T on. I know he likes a lot of my tweets. Literally anything I tweet where I have him involved in it, he likes it pretty quickly. So maybe we need to get a groundswell movement going. Ice-T will be here in Grand Rapids in about 2 weeks from now. I have literally questions already written up. I really am hoping that I can get him on here, even if only for 10 fucking minutes. So maybe in the next 2 weeks we really put out a thing. If you're listening to this, go on Twitter, tweet it. Like, I'll probably tweet him, like those, comment, make sure he's involved in it. Let's try to get this to fucking happen, because I want to be the only other podcast outside of Jamie Josta's that actually gets Ice-T. Dude's a fucking living legend, and I think would be amazing to get on this podcast.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, that's cream of the crop.
I mean,
I don't know if you'd like never mind.
But yeah, so very much open forward to that happening. And like I said, a lot of great interviews coming up. Constantly working on bringing great content to you guys. I want to thank Dan for coming on as the host, taking the time out of getting away from his Hopesball record, which he just got. So I know it was, very hard to pry yourself away from that and just not stare at it.
I told you I was busy, but you just kept insisting.
Yeah. That's why I knew I had to get it done now, because before you got lost in the whole day listening to it.
Right.
And we are going to end this episode as we always do. But before we do that, Dan, real quickly, tell people about rating, reviewing, and subscribing.
We love 5-star reviews here on John's Untitled Podcast. And the reason for that isn't because it inflates our own ego. Somebody doesn't write us a check for $5,000 every time you give us a review. The only reason we ask for reviews and ratings and things like that is we just like to know where we're at, number one. We want constructive criticism, feedback, whatever you want. But if we're your favorite podcast, go on whatever platform you're listening to us right now. Leave us a 5-star review. Tell people why you like the podcast. Share with your friends. Let them know what you like about this podcast. And if we're not your favorite podcast and you think there's some things we could be doing better, just let us know. And we are pretty easy to get along with guys. So as long as it's something other than you suck and should go kill yourself, we're pretty much on board to help you out to make our podcast better.
In watching Step Brothers last night while at the bar before the show, the Catalina wine mixer scene came on. And Rob Riggle's whole thing of like, you're fucking killing it right now, but there's something about your face. I just want to smash it. And, he's going on about that. And it made me think of, rating, reviewing, and subscribing, and more so the reviews. You can leave me a bad review, but if you tell me like I'm killing it, but there's just something about me and you don't know what it is that you don't like, and I can't, that's not really criticism I can expound upon and make things better. But I thought it was very weird how I just correlated Step Brothers to podcast reviews.
Well, but you bring up a good point. It's one of those, if you don't tell me what I'm doing wrong, I can't fix it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing. We aren't opposed to harsh criticism as long as it is actually criticism, we weigh and we weigh what we think is valid criticism and what we can do better, and we try better. Also, one of the biggest things too is a podcast that is highly reviewed has a more likely chance of showing up in search results whenever you're searching for an interview podcast or a music podcast or a movie podcast or whatever kind of podcast you have. You kind of want to show up quicker in search results in those genres than just being in the general market and kind of being out there. We're past the days of having to look for the content that you want,
right?
And recommendations are everything now, so you're more likely to get recommended a podcast like ours if you're reviewing all the ones that you like.
Very true. And on that note, we won't waste any more of your time, so we are going to end this episode as we always do with a song, and as you heard Lajon pick at the very end, he wanted me to play a newer song off the record, so we're going to play this episode out to Sickness from Sevendust's new record, All I See Is War, out now via Rise Records. Talk to you next week.